Classic Car TV.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Haggerty Classic Car TV. Weirdly, in Michigan, I don't know why, but it's not winter yet, so people are still driving, which is awesome. Hope you are too. Let's check the news.
It's time for news.
November 3rd was the 100th anniversary of Chevrolet. As an early birthday present, the automaker's green electroluminescent Hot Wheels Camaro was awarded Hottest Car at the 2012 SEMA show in Las Vegas. For all you die-hard surfers out there, Toyota unveiled its Oakley Surf Tacoma at the SEMA show, outfitted with GPS, customized spaces for surfboards, a barbecue grill, a cooler, and yes, a shower from the roof rack. Auctions of America, by RM's first ever Las Vegas premier vintage motorcycle auction, will feature an extremely rare 1894 Roper steam-powered runabout motorbike. The Roper bike is the second of two built by Sylvester Roper of Roxbury, Massachusetts, and is regarded as one of the world's oldest, predating the earliest Orient, Indian, and Harley-Davidsons. More than 400 motorcycles are expected to cross the block during the January event.
So if you're going to work on your car this winter, make sure you have the parts you need now. To help you with some junkyard etiquette and navigation, David Reckow, our parts specialist, is coming up.
Okay, so you're ready to jump into that restoration project and you know you need some pieces. Make sure you do your homework before you leave the house though, and have casting numbers on the part, potentially. Make sure you know specifically what the part looks like, if it has a very identifiable feature that's different from one model year to the next. Know what other vehicles it works on. If it's a bracket, know if it has a very unique tab on it, or it has a specific curve. If you have the old part and it's just bad, take that with you, assuming it's not obnoxiously large. You know, take a picture of it so you can carry that with you into the salvage yard or at a swap meet. The really tough parts to find at the end of the day are not your deck lid, they're not your trunk lid, they're not the big pieces. They're the small pieces that hold everything together, typically. A part like this fender marker would be difficult to locate. This happens to be just a fender marker on this model. Some cars this would actually be a functional blinker. When you're going into a yard, they're not going to loan you tools, so have your attaché case with your favorite wrench, screwdriver, pair of pliers, vice grips, hammer, you name it. Whatever it's going to take to get that part off in one piece. For instance, if you were looking for this parking light assembly here, you would want to make sure you had a socket wrench to come off the backside and pull that part out, or if you just want the lens, you're going to need a Phillips screwdriver.
This week's ride-along is in a killer Toronado that we bumped into while we were in Hershey. Check it out. This week's ride-along is in a 1966 Oldsmobile Toronado. Here to talk about it is the owner, Jed Rappaport. Tell me about the car. Where'd you find it?
This car came out of an estate back in the 1980s, and it was purchased by my father. And he, over the years, over about a 10-year period, restored the car back to what you see here today.
What's it feel like driving? Like when you're in it, what's the sensation you get?
It's a little hard to explain to people who are only familiar with modern cars with small engines and high RPMs, but this big V8, low RPMs, just unbelievable amounts of torque and power. It just cruises down the road so effortlessly. 70 miles an hour feels like nothing. It's hardly an effort for it.
Yeah.
And it just goes. And we actually had a couple of them at one point in time back in the day when they were just a car to drive. We actually had one we used to keep set up for winter driving. Put a set of studded snow tires on the big front wheel drive with a big engine. It would go through anything a four-wheel drive car would.
Also here today to talk about the Toronado as a collector car is Rob Sass from Haggerty Magazine. Tell us about owning this car.
This was a really significant car when it came out in 1966. It was the first American front-wheel drive car since Cord went out of production in 1937. Front-wheel drive had been done in Europe successfully with the Mini Cooper, but you were talking about little engines with, maybe 1,000 cc's. This thing's a big 425 cubic inch V8 with 385 horsepower. So getting front-wheel drive to work right in something like this was a lot more difficult. As a car to own today, as a collectible, they're really pretty bulletproof. I mean, so much so that the drivetrain at this car was used in a motorhome built by GMC for a lot of years. So they don't present any particular problems to ownership, and they're really sort of coming into their own right now as being sought-after collectible cars.
You ever driven one of these?
Once.
Yeah, what was it like?
A lot of fun. Big, heavy car that is a lot faster than you expect a car that weighs close to 5,000 pounds to be. I think they'll go 0 to 60 in about 7.5 seconds. and probably 120 mile an hour top speed. Not the best brakes in the world, you know, drum brakes, unless you got the optional front wheel discs that I think came on board around 1967, but a lot of fun to drive. More nimble than you'd expect for a car this size.
Doesn't get much cooler than this. Easy to drive, easy to forget that you're driving around in a 5,000 pound car, and I feel like I'd look cool. See you next time. You know, if I were Jonathan Klinger and I had a sweet Model A, I'd probably lock the doors before I went into work. Lucky for him, I have no idea how to start this. See you next week.